Good morning, everyone. We seem to have a lot of people that registered already online. It's 10 a.m., so we are going to get started. First of all, let me introduce myself and the other Arts Council staff that are here this morning. I'm Martine Collier. I'm the Executive Director. We have with us Joe Federico, who is our Grants and Contract Compliance Coordinator. He is the individual that our grantees spend a lot more time talking to than other staff members, and he is a person that will help you during this grant process. The other staff member on the line is Eileen Blake. Eileen is our Communications and Strategic Initiatives Coordinator, and she is the one that will help you promote your events and your organizations throughout the year, whether or not you're a grantee. That's Eileen's job, and she does a great job of it. This is our first Zoom webinar that the Arts Council has ever hosted, so be patient with us. We've done a lot of Zoom meetings, but we're excited about this opportunity to do our grant workshop, reach everybody in the county without you driving or trying to park downtown. So in a way, this is what we've been forced into by the pandemic, actually is a good thing. And we're excited about the number of participants that signed on to participate. Also, this webinar will be available for you to view afterwards if you want to refresh yourself on anything. Want to mention before we start the presentation that we have made some of the things have changed this year due to our response to the pandemic. This is why we are doing the cultural development grants and the community arts impact grants at the same time, the same grant deadline, the same panelist meeting date. So to coordinate, because the CDG original deadline was right as the pandemic was hitting, and we really didn't want to put an extra burden of people completing grant applications during that. We have a presentation that we're going to provide to kind of walk you through the process, and whether, if you're a first-time applicant, whether the Cultural Development Grant or the Community Arts Impact Grant might be the best match for you and your organization. But I want to say before we even start, don't feel like you have to make that decision just by this presentation. If you're still confused at the end of this, please pick up the phone or email or call Joe, and let's set up a Zoom one-on-one meeting with you, your organization, and we will help you even further. But this is the overview, and hopefully it will give you some good information. A couple of housekeeping details. We're going to go through the presentation first, and then we're going to open it up to questions and answers. And if you will put your questions in the Q&A section, that will facilitate our getting a fast response to you about any questions that you have. And with that, I'm going to ask Joe to go ahead and begin the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, let me see if I can do this right here. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and this is the Arts Council Community Arts Impact Grants that encompass both nonprofits and higher education, as well as the Cultural Development Grant we'll be covering here today. The Community Arts Impact is a project-based grant. There are two Community Arts Impact Grant programs. The first one is for nonprofit organizations. Organizations can ask for up to $1,000, from $1,000 to $5,000. And we have the higher education, the CAIG-CU, with the maximum ask of $12,500. To be considered for this, there must be a minimum score of 70 on the application. Cultural Development Grant is for general program support and is available to all 501c3 art and culture organizations. The funding is based on the score and the total funds that are available. So there's a kind of a complex type of formula that does that, depending on what you ask and how you score. And the minimum score to be funded for that is 80. Just some particulars about the grant programs themselves. They are funded by the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. They're available only to applicants that are based in Hillsborough County, and that's as per SunBiz, or Florida Division of Corporations. Must be a 501c3 in good standing, a registered active nonprofit Florida corporation, and you cannot receive funding from any other Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners source. They have here, it excludes capital funds, but I'm not sure if anyone's really receiving those. This is not open to municipalities or government entities. The only exception would be the education institutions for the Community Arts Impact Grant for higher education. This is a reimbursement-based grant, which means you lay out the money first, and then you send in the documentation and a request for reimbursement to us. To be considered, you must be in good standing if you are a prior Arts Council grantee. Very important here, the applications will close on July 17th, which is a Friday, at 5 p.m., and that's 5 p.m. sharp. This is a computerized thing, so there's no exceptions that can be made on that. And another note, you can only apply to one of the grant programs. You cannot apply to more than one. Okay, the program services and events are open to the public and benefit Hillsborough County residents. Art and culture is a primary focus of the project-based grant programs, as well as the organizational cultural development grant. All three grants are judged in three criteria: artistic cultural merit, community engagement and impact, and financial and administrative management. The Community Arts Impact Grant for the nonprofits in particular, it's for small emerging organizations that are trying to get a leg up, just getting started, or maybe they're just smaller and don't have the need for the capacity for the cultural development grant. Social services agencies who facilitate arts and cultural programs, ethnic or cultural organizations and or clubs, parks and rec centers, which are non-governmental, youth centers, neighborhood associations, community and service organizations. And then finally, we do have the higher education Community Arts Impact Grant Program. Again, that's limited to your colleges and universities, like University of Tampa, University of South Florida. And a special note on that, for the universities, if there's a different department, multiple departments can apply. So if there are two different departments within the university itself that want to apply for different projects, they may do so. And these are just some examples that we've had over the past couple of years. This is relatively new. I guess it's in its third year right now. We've had art classes for kids. There's a summer concert series, and I'm speaking out of turn here. There was one too where I believe where the kids constructed their own bicycle, and it was very interesting. There's a theater production with local performers, printing costs for community theaters, large print programs, exhibition costs for visual art shows, dance and music performances at community arts festivals, and festivals celebrating cultural heritage. And there's a special note that it must be within the disciplines of dance, folk art, literature, creative writing, media arts, music, theater, visual arts, or multidisciplinary art forms. These are an example of some CA Community Arts Impact Grant projects that aren't eligible. Benefits and projects planned primarily for fundraising, activities for which academic credit is given, projects to reduce existing deficits, projects not open to the general public and or restricted to membership only, and of course capital projects are not eligible. All three grants, there is matching requirements in 2 out of 3. The Community Arts Impact Grant for the first award has no match, and then incrementally it goes up. After a first award, it goes to 25%. A second award, it goes to 50%. And then the third award, it goes to 100%. If you're currently a Community Arts Impact grantee and you're not sure how many you've actually got, or you just need to confirm that, please just give me a call and I can let you know that. The the Cultural Development Grant is a dollar for dollar match. So if you're asking for $25,000, we're asking that you match that $25,000 dollar for dollar. The Community Arts Impact Grant for higher education, colleges and universities, there is no match required on that. The eligible expenses, they are different for each grant program. We have a set of guidelines for that. Again, if you have any specific questions on that, please do not hesitate to give me a call. So that way, when you're doing your budget, you know what's going to be acceptable or not, and so it's not a big surprise if you do get an award. But what we can say that is ineligible is private entertainment, food and beverages, plaques, awards, prizes, or scholarships, licensing fees of any kind, interest on loans, fines, penalties, or cost of litigation. The funds may not be used for regranting, and they may not be used for office rent, utilities, or ongoing business expenses. Eligibility, again, primary purpose, deliver arts and cultural programs. For the Cultural Development Grant, we ask that 50% of the events do take place in Hillsborough County over a 12-month period. All project-based grants must take place in Hillsborough County. And again, the Cultural Development Grant has a minimum score of 80 to be considered for funding. Now, 80 is not a guarantee that you will get funded if it's a very competitive grant process. And for the CAIG and the CAIG for higher education, the minimum score is 70. And again, the score for the cultural development, there's a fancy calculation that does all that based upon how you score and what you ask and the available funds that are there. We do not have that figure exact for that. And here are the Cultural Development Grant funding levels. And this is based upon your latest 990 that you will submit in your application. We ask that it be within 18 months of the application date. So if your revenue is under 100,000, you can ask for level 1 funding, which is 15,000 max. 100 to 399,999 is level 2, which is a maximum ask of 20,000. And then over 400,000 and over level 3, there's a maximum ask of 25,000. Everything is done through the online grant system. I know that I see a lot of familiar faces in the participants there. So you're familiar with that. Again, for those who aren't, please do not hesitate to contact me. I can walk you through it, especially now with the Zoom, which is even better. You know, we can get through that. It's not a very difficult system, but sometimes it can be, you know, a bit confusing. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please do not hesitate to call me. But everything will take place in the online grant system, your application, and if you are awarded your contract agreement, all reimbursements will go through there and your final reports as well. And down at the bottom there, there's a link where you can register or log in if you haven't registered yet. There are two different, this is the actual screen that it will take you to. There's two ways that it's presented. In this way, it looks like it's just a row of them, and you can see where it'll say you're going to be looking for, in this instance, on the bottom there, FYE 2021, and you'll see the 3 grant programs that are currently being offered right now. There's another view which is a block type of view, but if you just keep scrolling down, you'll see it. Unfortunately, we were trying to figure out a way to put these ones on the top, and it didn't want to cooperate with us. So again, if you have a problem with finding that, just give me a call. But if you just scroll down, no matter what format you're looking at it, whether it's just a line or a graphic, you should be able to see that. Okay, all we ask is that you register once and to use an email that is going to be monitored, because that's the system will use that email as the point of contact for any future or any notifications whatsoever. For instance, your confirmation that your application was actually submitted, And moving forward, if you are to get an award, confirmation that your reimbursements have actually been submitted and are being reviewed. What you'll want to do too is you definitely want to check your spam and your junk folder, because sometimes that it does go in there. Unfortunately, we can't control that. We try our best, but it will say that it is coming from the Arts Council of Hillsborough County. And tips online. This is gleaned from in my couple of years experience, and prior to that too, when Terry Simons was here, to register only once, and to make sure that someone is looking for that email address, because that is going to be the point of contact that the system will use to send out information. There is an online help button, which is general help with the actual system itself, not with the application. So again, if you have application questions, please don't hesitate to call me. If there's something about the system, then there is an online help system there for you. One thing I always say is plan ahead, be proactive, and submit it early. I used to be one of those guys that told myself I worked well under pressure, and I put myself under undue pressure for no reason. And I learned to change that. And so I'm a big proponent of this.
Okay, I'm going to chime in here, Joe, because folks, if you get your application in, say, a week early, that gives us a chance to look at it. And if we see something that is going to be a problem, give you an opportunity to fix it before the deadline. If you submit it right at the deadline, that option is gone. We want you to be successful, but in order for us to review it in advance, you need to get the application in a little bit before the deadline, because otherwise we don't have the opportunity to do that. And we can pick up on things that would possibly disqualify you before the deadline and have you contact you, and you can fix it. And it's just, it just works well for everyone if you don't wait till the deadline to submit, and submit it a few days or a week early.
Thank you, Martine. And again, I keep putting in there July 17th by 5 p.m. And that is a system thing. It will stop at 5 p.m. It will stop accepting applications, and no exceptions, unfortunately, can be made to that. Your application sections, there's an eligibility quiz, then there's organizational information, an organization profile, just history of your program, and then your narrative, which is the meat and potatoes of it. That's what you're proposing that you're going to do with the money from this grant. Then your budgets are there. There are some upload sections, and there's two things to keep in mind here too. You have a save and continue editing button, which I suggest that you do wholeheartedly, especially since it's going over the internet. And I know when my internet connection drops on me every now and then, and I'm in the middle of something, boy, I'm so mad that I didn't hit the save and continue editing or something similar to that. And then when you're finally done with that, you can mark it as complete. Now it says no further changes, but you can actually do that. I won't get into too much detail, but if you happen to mark something as complete prior to the deadline of the grant, and prior to actually submitting the entire package, because mark is complete, well, each section has a mark is complete. And if you feel you make a mistake, there is a way to edit that. It's not as obvious. There's what they call an ellipsis up in the upper right-hand corner. You can click that and click the edit to get back. But if you have trouble finding that, once again, please do not hesitate to contact me. I could walk you through it very quickly just in case.
And for anyone that's a first-time applicant, I'm sure our veteran applicants know this, but I strongly encourage you to do your narrative and everything in Word, and then copy and paste it into the application, because if you do lose something, then you haven't lost it. And it's really much easier to stay on top of things if you do that. So that's just a little helpful tip. Do it in Word and then copy and paste into the grant application.
Okay. For the cultural development grant, we're asking for 3 years operating budgets, your last fully completed fiscal year, your current fiscal year, and then your next fiscal year, which is what this proposal will be based upon. And for grant allocation budgets for the project, we have project-based for the Community Arts Impact Grant, and then there's the annual budget for the Cultural Development Grant. And these are just an example of some of the uploads that are required. Board of Directors list with affiliations. That can be just on a straight, I believe Microsoft Word or PDF is acceptable. PDF is acceptable in all uploads. Organizational chart and work sample for your Cultural Development Grant. And then for the Community Arts Impact Grant for colleges and universities, higher education, we're asking for a project timeline and collaboration letters. That is because that was a big part of that program, was collaboration. Then there's some optional support, some program and project brochures and commitment letters from collaborators. So for cultural development or community arts impact for nonprofits, you could upload those as well. And one of the things here, because you are limited to the number of uploads, if you have like documents, you could put them into one PDF and that would just count as one upload. Again, if you do have issues with that, with the upload, please let me know. We can work through that. And in a lot of cases, the answer is very simple. And it's just, there's also something in there too in the application itself for putting in links to YouTube. And sometimes those links, they get abbreviated, and the actual online support, the online grant system does not like those. So if you happen to see those when you put a link in and it doesn't appear, just give me a call. There's a good chance it's using a, I guess it's, for lack of a better term, an abbreviated link that doesn't seem to cooperate. And some tips on the narrative. Clearly state your need, what you're requesting, and for what you're requesting it for. Be direct and concise, and answer the questions asked. That's I was on the other end of this doing grant work, and I've sometimes found myself going into another area and deviating from exactly what the grant was asking me to do, and a lot of times I had to go back and go, wait a minute, I never answered that question. Like Martine said, work offline, copy and paste through Microsoft Word, and also do a spell check through there. And these are commitment letters, in particular collaboration. What we ask is that they're on the actual organization's letterhead and not just general. If it's for an actual project, say a community arts impact grant program project, that it expresses what the level of collaboration and what it's going to be. We ask that if it's just a general letter that, if it lacks any substance, it might not, the panelists might not review that as well. And that it is somewhat current, that it doesn't go back from 3 or 4 or 5 years ago or so, and that it relates to what you're doing right now. Okay, now we're talking about Word again. If you do it in Word, the formatting will not transfer. There's no bullet list, but for some reason, numbered lists work. If multiple people want to work on the application, we just suggest you use one. You just register once for the organization and not have 2 people trying to do that. Be mindful of word counts. It's the questions that are asked for the response, if there are word count limitations, it will indicate that in parentheses at the end of what they're asking for. And again, upload only acceptable file formats. Anything in PDF will upload, that is for sure. And in some instances, Word will be able to be uploaded as well. And again, I can't stress enough, July 17th, 2020 by 5 p.m., the applications close and no exceptions can be made.
Another great reason to do it in Word is that you can check that word count before you actually put it into the grant application and know that you're good there.
And we're going to say it again, be proactive, apply early to avoid problems. On our website, we have guidelines and sample applications and eligibility quiz and FAQs for each of the programs. And of course, there's the number where you can call us. Again, please do not hesitate. We are teleworking, but I do check in on a daily basis with my for my messages. So please do not hesitate to contact me if you do have any questions whatsoever. I'd be happy to answer them for you. And that would be it.
So let's open it up to Q&A and see what you all would like to ask us or share with us, and we'll see what questions we can. If we don't have the answer right now, we will find out and get back to you. And again, you have the opportunity to have a one-on-one meeting with us to, if you're undecided about which grant best suits your needs, and we'd be happy to help you with that. But we're going to open it up to Q&A, but I actually had a question before the webinar. I believe Nancy is on the line. Because we require 3 years, the current fiscal year, the previous fiscal year, the current fiscal year, and next fiscal year. Whatever fiscal year you are in as you're completing the application would be your current fiscal year. So if your fiscal year ended the end of May and you're doing this application now, this year would be the current year and the prior year would be the past year. And then looking at, we made a change in that this year because we aligned it with what the state asked for. Because our feeling was a lot of our grantees have also applied for state funding, and this enabled people to use the exact same budget for the most part that they did for that. So I hope that answers Nancy's question. If it doesn't, Nancy, get back in touch with either Joe or I. And any other questions from folks that are attending today? Let's see I see some things. Okay. Are links to video preferable to uploading video files? I'm going to throw that one to Joe because he's more familiar with that.
Yes, links are preferable.
Okay.
I believe it will only accept links, but if the link is correct, it will play in the application itself online as well.
Okay. And here's a question. We started our FY 2021 on June 1st. I guess that's fiscal year. We have a budget, but it is a drastic change from our completed FY that ended May 31st. Considering the COVID situation, it will be difficult to project our budget for the next FY 21-22. Will there be some consideration given to the financial impact and uncertainty due to COVID-19? Absolutely. And if you have a place in the narrative that you want to talk about the responses that your organization is doing, we expect there to be differences, and we would be surprised if there were not. So you just need to, be as, no one has a crystal ball. And when I did the state application, I had to project out, a couple of years. But we just sort of want an idea about what you're thinking, and we know there are a lot of unknowns right now. One change that we made to respond to the COVID crisis is typically we're asking questions about your prior season, and was it a full season, and questions about performances, exhibitions that we took out this year because we know that no one was able to achieve during this FYE 2020 what they had planned. So we're aware of that. We're responsive to it. We've been helping our current grantees make changes in order to still receive the funding in light of this. So we are very sensitive to the COVID situation, and our panelists will be as well. My recommendation is in the narrative, be as honest as possible about how you're the innovating to try and respond to the situation as it exists. And I think everyone will understand that. Another question, does the word count include spaces? Joe, is it characters or spaces? Is it characters or words?
It will include spaces too.
Okay. Next question, that was another, does the word count include or exclude spaces? So we add. Will you send us email the PowerPoint? We certainly can do that. Can't we, Eileen? I think Eileen is muted,
yeah.
but Oh,
Absolutely.
no, she isn't. There she is.
Yeah.
So we can definitely send the PowerPoint. And again, this presentation will be a video of it. We are recording it, will be available as well. Also, it says 3-year budget in the time of coronavirus will screw everything. We understand. And again, that's why we didn't ask for specific information that we typically do about this particular season. But we would like to, again, the state grant asked for you to sort of look forward, and we were trying to align with that. So it's always, when you're projecting for another year, there are a lot of unknowns. There are more unknowns than usual, I will agree, but just be kind of realistic. And again, if you explain any sweeping changes in the narrative, everyone's going to understand. Our panelists are people that also work in cultural organizations, and they're experiencing the same thing. So I have an attendee that says, just to clarify, we can't apply for CAIG and CDG, and that is correct. You have to choose. And again, based on the individual circumstances of your organization, it may be a very clear-cut way to decide which one is best for your organization. And that may require setting up a meeting with us. That's fine. If you're an all-volunteer organization, CAIG might be a better option. But individual circumstances, we're not going to absolutely say that's the case in all cases. Individual circumstances certainly play into that, but we'd rather you set up a time and talk to us about it to decide which one best meets your needs, rather than just try and figure it out on your own, because we do have some things that can sort of help with that. So if you have a question, get impossible. Is it possible to make the file limits for uploads bigger? Compiled PDF files tend to get bigger. Joe, I'll let you respond to that.
I believe we can. I will have to check the actual limits of the system itself. So I will have to get back to him on that. That was Nick.
Okay. Nick,
yes.
We will get back to you on that.
Back to you on that.
Do you have examples of grants for CDGs? Your previous examples seem to be for CAIGs. We do have examples, don't we, Joe?
Yes, we do. It's on the web page on the website, and I could send them too as well.
If you need to know it specifically, send Joe an email or give him a call. But we do have those. If we do not get a grant, will you counsel us on how to do better the next time? Absolutely. We will sit down with you. We will go over your grant application. We will look at the panelists' comments. We will absolutely try and help you learn this skill and do a better job next time. But again, we'll do that on the front end before you put in your application if you're struggling about what to apply for. So please take advantage of our counsel on the front end, not just afterwards. You've mentioned SCORE a few times. Can you explain that system further? So each of the categories that Joe mentioned in the artistic merit, community impact, financial resources, in the different grants, they're assigned a different SCORE value. And the panelists go through a rubric, and based on the application, they score each section. So you could score very high in community impact, and maybe not as high in financial resources, not resources, but the business of the organization. So if you look in the guidelines, we do have the scores listed there, do we not, Joe? Joe, where do they go to see the scores?
Yes, we do.
And if you can't find that, please contact Joe and he'll direct you to the specific scoring system for the specific grant program. I saw under ineligible, I saw that grant money shouldn't be used for office rental, but can it be used for performance venue rental? Yes. It can be used for performance rental, but just not for office administrative, because the performance venue rental is more program oriented rather than administrative. Can you expound on the match requirements? It's pretty simple for cultural development. It's a one-on-one match. So if you receive $8,000, you need to show us that you've got $8,000 coming in from other sources that match, and that could be private contributions, any other kind of contribution that you are getting. We just need to see that you can match that. In the CAIG, it is a sliding scale. So the first year that you apply, there is no match, and then there's a percentage every year. The idea being that you become a more successful grant writer and a better or a more effectively run organization as you go along. And ultimately, some of the people that started out in Community Arts Impact, as they grow, as their organization grows, they may end up being cultural development grantees. So that's kind of getting you used to the fact that there would be a match if you became cultural development that would be 100%, but we kind of do this sliding scale to help emerging and organizations new to this get into the pool and start to learn more about the grants process. Our fiscal year ends on May 31st. We will not have a completed 990 for that fiscal year. Can we apply for level 2, or do we need to wait a year? Because you don't have the completed 990, I think you would have to wait a year. Is that not correct, Joe?
Yes, you would have to wait a year.
That is our way of determining that from a particular line in the 990. If it was a matter of you not having the current 990, we can take 990s from 18 months back, but it sounds as though you would not show in the most recent, if it does not show in the most recent 990 that you are $100,000 or more, then you have to go to the level below until you have that completed 990. Eligibility is the 50% of events in Hillsborough only for the year you're applying for, or also for previous years. I think it has to be at least for the most recent previous year, correct, Joe?
Yes. Yeah.
We would anticipate that the year you're applying for, that would be the same, but the evidence that this is based on is from the immediate preceding year. Can multiple users using one login use and save at the same time, or do we need to take turns? I think they need to take turns, Joe.
I think it's dangerous. I don't think you want to do that.
And the other thing, when Joe talked about setting up an email that is monitored, I know a lot of us have an info at, which is kind of a generic. Best not to put your info at, better to put an individual's name, and then you can share, another staff member can still use that same login, even if it's not their name, to add information into it. But it wouldn't be, I agree with Joe, it would, I'm not sure it would even allow you to, but it probably would not be a good idea, even if it allowed you to be doing things at the same time. I think you could get into a situation of losing
it's like going into a
information.
database. It's like going into a database and you got conflicting data going in, and it's probably not going to be good. So
Next, thank you for this webinar. Projecting next year is full of questions as every other year, even more. Thanks for the information. Again, we understand you don't have a crystal ball. Just do your best, and it's fine. We anticipate that, revenues may be down, probably will be because of the current situation that we're in. But I think what we would like to see for the panelists is in the narrative, the innovative things that you are doing to mitigate this to whatever you can. But they are going to understand that this is an unusual situation. Is there a list of the people attending this Zoom that you can send us? Eileen?
Hi.
Is that?
So technically, yes, we do have a list. However, not everybody who's attending this webinar agreed to have their information sent out. So I would need to determine in some fashion who is and who is not willing to have their information shared. So to make this a little easier, what we could do is, if you do not want to have your information shared with the rest of the group, please just put it in the chat. And then that way I know.
So the next question, my fiscal year ends 6/30 and this grant goes in on 7/15. So is that my current year? So yes, the year that begins 7/1/2020 and ends 6/30/2021 is the current year, and that's the year that the funding would fall into as well. So I don't see any other questions at this point. Does anybody else have questions? But I can't emphasize strongly enough not to try and figure out things on your own. Please, we are here to help you. And if you have any, no matter what your questions are, you know, you can talk to Joe, or we can set up a face-to-face meeting and I can be involved. We want to help you. We understand. Writing a grant application is never easy, but it's particularly challenging in the times that we're living in right now. And I know all of your organizations are very challenged in a lot of ways. Don't be afraid to let that show in your grant application. I think the panelists will be very understanding, and it is our reality right now. So we can't sweep it under the rug, but we can talk about things that we can do to mitigate the circumstances we're in right now and the uncertainty that we all have about anything in the future, not just next year, but even a month or two from now. So it's a difficult time, and we understand that. So please don't feel that you have to power through on your own. Give Joe a call, set up a meeting, whatever you need to do to give you your best shot at getting funding. And I do want to emphasize again, we can help you so much more if you get that application in early and we have a chance to look at it and catch some things that might disqualify you, or we can, you know, please, we will do that, but we can only do that if you submit early. And early is not 2 hours before the deadline. Early is a few days, preferably a week before the deadline, and we're happy to do that. I have someone that says, you can share our info, so I will tell Eileen who said that, so we can confirm that. So those of us who have fiscal year ends of 5/31 or 6/30, the current year's budget will represent the same year. No, I will call Joe. Yes, call Joe. Joe will help you, Nancy. We'll get this figured out, and it's really simpler than it sounds. So give Joe a call, and we'll try and get that taken care of. Any other questions that anyone has or would like to bring up? That seems to be the end of the ones that we've gotten in the Q&A box. If not, I want to emphasize once again that this has been recorded, and you can go back to this. We will send you the PowerPoint. Eileen is going to check to see if we need to get permission from any of the other attendees in order to send you out a list of those people that attended the meeting. Again, I can't emphasize strongly enough that we are there to help you through this process, and don't hesitate to give us a call. We are working remotely. but we are on the case, and we are happy to, if we need to meet with you. We've become really great at Zoom meetings. This is our first Zoom webinar, but we got the Zoom meetings down. So we're happy to meet with you and help you answer any questions that you may have. Anything else from anyone? I'm looking to see if there are any other questions. I don't see any. So anything else you wanted to add, Joe?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
So thank you all for attending our first ever Arts Council hosted webinar. And we're probably going to be doing a lot more things via webinar in the year ahead. So stay tuned for hopefully some exciting opportunities as we try and reach out and provide technical assistance to our cultural organizations in a lot of new ways given the existing situation.